So something very strange just happened in the Warhammer gaming universe, a blink and you miss it kind of moment, with an official Games Workshop video that has now sparked a full-on conspiracy theory among Dawn of War fans. During a Deep Strike podcast in which Dawn of War was the topic of discussion, many eagle-eyed viewers saw a logo for Dawn of War 3, but the logo didn't just say Dawn of War 3, it said Dawn of War 3 Eradication. Now perhaps it's just people's wishes to eradicate Dawn of War 3 as if it never happened. Some believe it didn't ever happen anyway, but on a serious note, that single extra word has sent the community into detective mode. On the Dawn of War subreddit, one user pointed out that the video briefly displayed logos for all previous Dawn of War titles, but the third game appeared with an unfamiliar subtitle. Now that alone might not mean much, except for one important detail. Relic has previously invested in revisiting the franchise, including re-releases of older games, so fans immediately started connecting the dots. Is this a remaster, a definitive edition, cancelled DLC resurrected, or just a production mistake? Let's unpack the theories, because the Reddit comments have been pretty fun to read as always. Now, just before we go and do that, I would like to say a very big thank you for everyone supporting the channel. I would like to make a little request, is that if you do enjoy the videos, that you give this one a thumbs up, and I guess somewhat more importantly, make sure you are subscribed and hit the notification bell. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. I'm super excited and happy about that, of course, and I couldn't do that without your help. It's great to see so many familiar faces in the comment section below, and I really am humbled by the fact that you actually enjoy the content enough to come back for future videos. But now back to the Reddit comments. First of all, we should probably acknowledge the elephant in the room. Dawn of War 3 has a, well, complicated legacy. Unlike the beloved first two games, Dawn of War 3 was widely criticized at launch for abandoning the series' traditional RTS formula, leaning more heavily into the MOBA-style mechanics, simplified base building, and a tone that many fans didn't feel matches the grimdark Warhammer setting. Now that history shapes pretty much most reactions that you're about to hear. Some commenters responded with pure sarcasm, almost disbelief that the game could even return at all, because of course, how can you return if the game never existed in the first place? One user joked, well, they are going to actually remove it from storefronts and terminate anyone who mentions it, hence the name Eradication. Another user added, well, Dawn of War 4 is actually going to be renamed to Dawn of War 3 to seal the deal and rewrite history. That is essentially the community mood at the moment, at least on Reddit, which is possibly not a good representation, but in a nutshell, it's half humor, half trauma. But beneath the jokes, there is real speculation. One of the most interesting theories suggested that Eradication might not be a new product at all. Instead, it could be the name of cancelled content. A commenter wondered whether this was a cancelled DLC that they made promo materials for, noting that the Warhammer 40k logo in the video appeared to be an older version, something you wouldn't normally use for a modern re-release. That is actually a relatively compelling argument. Game assets often live in archives for years, and maybe the marketing team didn't realize that it wasn't ever released. It could be true, but I don't quite believe it. It's not an error that I think has been made, because it would be an unusual one. But there is one thing else to consider. Well, it's not the first time we've had these Easter egg little drop moments of hints for the future. In fact, with Dawn of War 4, we had something very similar. There was a moment during a PC Gamer Show video that we actually had the Dark Angels teased before they were actually officially announced. Not only that, we also had the drop of there being Lion L. Johnson, apparently with a file name if I'm not mistaken, that wasn't hidden, and that was of course a teaser, I guess a leak really, of the future reveal that we will indeed have the Lion L. Johnson to play in the game. In any case, there are some optimistic interpretations of that little reveal, and one of the fans on Reddit, well possibly only one, desperately wants to believe that Dawn of War 3 could be coming back. Because what if this is really a re-release? Relic already proved that there is demand for classic RTS experiences. If a definitive edition approach worked for older titles, revisiting Dawn of War 3 could be a chance to fix what didn't land the first time. New balance, restored mechanics, expanded factions, improved campaigns, essentially a redemption arc. However, this sounds a bit more like a rework than a definitive edition. And then there's the actual choice of the word eradication, because it sounds dramatic enough to signal a major overhaul. But of course, this is pure speculation. It could just imply content focused on extermination-style warfare, tyrannids, or large-scale planetary conflict. And then of course, many fans, if not most, are convinced that any redemption isn't really possible. One brutally honest comment described the game as leaving an abysmal void that just can't be filled. That might sound harsh, but it highlights something important. A re-release wouldn't just need improvements, it would need to rebuild trust. Because even though we are getting older, RTS communities tend to remember. Now there is another possibility, of course, that could be being overlooked, that this could be nothing more than a graphic design mistake. Large media companies produce countless videos, slides, and promotional materials. It's entirely plausible, maybe, that someone grabbed an old mock-up, a placeholder or concept logo, without realizing it was never officially used. I have to be honest, I'm not entirely sure this is the case. But even if nothing more comes of this, it's still a pretty funny story to cover. The sheer speed, by the way, at which the community noticed, analyzed, and debated this tiny detail shows that Dawn of War is never far from forgotten. But it also shows that the marketing department need to be super careful, because people like me, and others of course, are looking frame by frame at everything they publish. I don't think this is something that's new to them, I'm pretty sure they know this already, which is why I think this Dawn of War 3 eradication business wasn't just a mistake. So the real question is, did Games Workshop accidentally, or perhaps even intentionally, just spoil something about Dawn of War 3? Right now, of course, there is no confirmation whatsoever, no announcement, no official statement, just one mysterious subtitle, one brief appearance, and a fandom ready to believe, or maybe just to roast, depending on how things unfold. Personally, I'm actually thinking that this is more of a case of a little teaser of a future edition of Dawn of War 3, maybe like a remaster. I don't know if it really makes sense to do it, because will there really be a player base? I mean, I'm not so sure. But on the other hand, can this really just be a cancelled project artifact and a little slip up to include it in the video? I'm not so sure of that either. Either way, if Dawn of War 3 Eradication does turn out to be real, well, that would be one hell of a comeback story, and certainly a surprising one. So what do you guys think? Is this a genuine tease, a marketing accident, or just the internet doing what it does best? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. More importantly, I do have another video cooking about Dawn of War 4 that should be being released very soon, in particular, actually taking a look into the contents of the Deep Strike podcast. So if you'd like to watch that in the future, make sure you are subscribed, and more importantly, you've hit the notification bell so that you get a bit of a ding-dong when I do upload that video. As always guys, take care, and see you next time.